Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Savvy Seller Housing Market Show. I'm here to Jen Sylvester. I'm here to give you all the news, the breakdown, what the heck's happening in the real estate market this week, and no shortage of updates and information and some interesting research that I did on those articles this week. We are talking about, it's all over the headlines, how 50% of the homes in the U.S. have lost value. And I will tell you right now that headline is a little misleading. And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to dig into that. I've also got a couple other articles, a couple other pieces of information, some research I did that I want to share with you, stemming from that, which I thought was very interesting, which hopefully you will find helpful. But how you doing on the Turkey Day prep? That's what I want to know. Happy Turkey Day week. You know what? For all those that are still needing to get out there and go shopping, God love you. You couldn't pay me to go to a grocery store right now. Let me tell you, I'm glad I am all set for Turkey Day. Small crowd, going to be very, very quiet, relaxing. Very much looking forward to it. Taking the parade. When a good, very, very, very good friend of mine, her son's marching in the Macy's Day Parade this year, so I'm looking forward to checking that out. We got some folks already jumping in. We got 2314 Starling in the house, coming in from Southeast Georgia. Good to see you. Good to see you. We've got Terry Hopeful. We've got who's already got the QQQ. We're ahead of the game. Wonder if there's ever a long, slow decline. Was there ever a slow crash? Ooh, that's a great question. Let's dig into that. Let's dig into that later for sure. Let's table that and get back to it because that's a great question. We got Miss H in here. Good to see you. A wiggly arm guy. Angie in the house, coming from California. Excellent. Finished the shopping yesterday. You know, good call, Angie. Good call. What are we talking about today? We are talking about, first off, a little housekeeping. Do me a favor, post your wins. If you have whatever's happened this past week, even if the win is that the fact that you got to the grocery store and you got a good price on a turkey. Seriously, anything to do with groceries this right now is a massive win. So share your wins. QQQ in front of the questions so I can make sure I don't miss you with all the conversations that happen in the live chat, if you're watching this live. Sometimes it's hard for me to distinguish questions. I don't want to miss those questions. We've got the poll tonight. I want to know what you guys, what your thought is on a pending market crash. Do you want the housing market to crash? Tell me honestly, because you know there's school of thoughts of yes or no or sideways or whatnot. I want to understand where you guys are coming from. What are your honest thoughts, opinions, concerns, all the things? Jump in on that poll. Let me know. So today's headlines, 53% of homes have lost value. We're going to get into that and look at that, what that actually means. I'm also going to talk about what features add value. So the National Association of Home Builders came out with a survey that actually, they went through a 10-page survey on what items actually do add value to a home. So I'm going to share that with you. And I will, of course, have the links in the description on all this stuff so you can check it out in detail after the fact. And then AI. You can't escape hearing about AI in the news these days, whether they're talking about the AI bubble and what that means to your stock portfolio or AI, in this case, AI in real estate. And California just passed a new law. Typically, when it comes to real estate, anyways, in my experience and in monitoring trends and so forth, historically, things move from west to east. So if California does something in real estate, passes a new law, whatnot, the trend typically makes its way across the country. So I'm going to share that with you. And, just kind of cover that because I think it's important to know no matter whether you're sitting on the seller side or the buyer side. I think it's important, very, very important to understand what the heck is going on. Um, so I'm gonna dig in. We've we got Blake in Guatemala. Good grief! Welcome, welcome. I love it, love it, love it. Getting outside of the good old U.S. of A., which is fantastic. All right, let's get this show on the road. But before I do that, I got a little bit of breaking news. Want to share with you tonight. And you know what? I haven't done this in a while, but um, the U.S. consumer confidence was finally the report. Now the government is reopened. They're now releasing all the reports that the Fed was waiting for to before they made before they had their meeting and made the decision on the price adjustments and so forth. And this report was literally released this morning at 10 a.m. And this is the U.S. consumer confidence fell sharply in November. This is done by the Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index. I actually researched that, and they said they poll about 3,000 folks that represent different parts of the country, different age demographics, income statuses, all the things to come up with this information. So the Consumer Confidence Board Consumer Confidence Index. So there's three different indexes that they follow: the consumer confidence, the present situation, the expectations index. The Consumer Confidence Index declined by 6.8 points. The Present Situation Index, which is based on consumers' assessment of where they are right now. How do they feel about their financial situation right this very moment? Current business labor market conditions fell 4.3%. Expectations Index, based on consumers' short-term outlook. What's happening? What do they think is going to happen in the near future? Also fell by 8.6%. Dana Peterson, who's the chief economist at the Conference Board, said that consumer confidence tumbled in November due to its lowest level since April after moving sideways for several months. All five components of the overall index flagged or remained weak. The present situation index dipped as consumers were less sanguine. Okay, so I had to Google this, guys. I don't even like what are they talking about? Sangria? I feel like I've pretty in depth, familiar with my English language. It means positivity. They could have just said that. They could have been less positive, but whatnot. Anyways, they're less positive about the current business and labor market conditions. The labor market differential, which is the share of consumers who say jobs are plentiful minus the share saying that they're hard to get, dipped. More people are saying it's hard to get than they are that it's easy to get, that the jobs are plentiful. Dipped again in November after a brief respite in October from its year-to-date decline. All three components of the expectation index deteriorated in November. Consumers were notably more pessimistic about business conditions 6 months from now. Mid-2026 expectations for labor market conditions remained decidedly negative, and expectations for increased household incomes shrunk dramatically after 6 months of strong positive readings. It goes on to, among the demographic groups, on the 6-month moving average basis, confidence continued to improve for consumers under 35, but confidence for consumers age 35 and older dipped, with respondents 55 and over remaining the most downbeat this year. My commentary on that is, you know what? If you're under 35, you got a long time, you got a long time ahead of you. You have longer to weather the storm. You may have less stress on your income. Potentially, if you're under 35, you're probably, a large portion of those folks are still living at home, so the financial burden is not as heavy. If you're over 55 and over, you're thinking about retirement. You're in retirement. There's not a lot of wiggle room, time left on the calendar, so to speak. Not that you get one foot in the grave, but if the stock market takes a plunge, Social Security, the whole nine yards, how long is it going to take for it to loop around? What kind of safety net Gen X, my generation, our generation is it is common for our generation. We did not save like the baby boomers did. And so this stuff is more concerning to us. So I'm not surprised about that assessment at all. Um, and again, I'm gonna put this in the description. You can go through this. I'm not gonna read through this whole report. I just wanted to touch on, how the things that I look at and how this potentially affects the housing market. Okay, the assessment of family finances and recession risk. It says consumer assessments of their family current financial situation deteriorated in November. This is not coming as a huge surprise, right? Like, this is the way I feel like this is reflecting what a lot of folks, including myself, the way we feel. Sometimes the way we feel betrays us. That's actually not what's happening, but in this case, I think it pretty much tells the story. So the family's current financial situation percentage, consumers' assessments of their family expected financial situation also worsened. And consumers' perceived likelihood of a U.S. recession over the next 12 months increased in November. These types of things, when you are, consumers are looking at this as they're concerned about the increased concern over likely U.S. recession. They're concerned about their financial situation with their family. And it's the whole financial assessment now and in the future. This does not bode well for the housing market at all. And it explains a lot on what is happening now. It is not just interest rates. It is not just supply. Matter of fact, I would venture to say that even if we had more supply, even if we had a continued deterioration in values, home values, prices dropped, I don't believe the housing market would substantially improve based on this information. Unemployment numbers were not good. If you have all of these things, just because you have the ability, or if the situation is great, you go into a supermarket, something's on sale. If you can't afford it, it doesn't matter. Big screen TVs, 50% off. I don't even have the 50%. Doesn't matter. So if if families can't afford their consumer confidence, they're nervous about what's going to happen now in the next 6 months. Doesn't what the interest rates are doing, what the values are doing, doesn't matter. So that's my breaking news for today. All right, before I jump into the headlines here, I'm gonna jump over in the chat, say hi to you guys. Let's see what's popping here. And Terry, hopeful I'm not going to forget about your QQQ. We got Miss H saying, what will it really matter if the market crashed? So many people lost jobs, lost homes, can't afford anything. How will it help so many? Please explain. Yes, we actually, I got some research on that. Oh, we got hello Karen in the house. Good to see you. We got to win. We got to win. Manda Mo. Manda Mo says, Win survived inspection negotiations after finally getting a new home. Buyers to accept 2-year home warranty offer set to close December 5th. Woohoo! Everybody support Manda Mo. Congratulations. Good for you. Excellent, excellent. All right. Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. Good. All right. Let's get this show on the road here with what's going on. Okay. So this report came out. This is a Fortune article, and this was covered. Good grief! If you Google it, if you go on YouTube, it has been covered by the mainstream media. It's been covered by all the major publications and so forth. And basically, it's all the data's coming from Zillow. But what I want to point out is what the data represents. A little bit, very much misleading, in my opinion. So more than half of U.S. homes have dropped in value over the last year. And nearly all houses in these cities have seen losses. Says the share of U.S. homes that have lost value in the past year is the highest since the aftermath of the Great Recession. Sounds super scary. In October, 53% of homes saw their Zestimates decline. the most since 2012 and up from just 16% a year later. Losses were most widespread in the West and South. In fact, those regions have housing markets where nearly all homes declined in value of last year. Denver topped the list with 91%, followed by Austin, 89%, Sacramento, Phoenix, and Dallas. Zestimates. This information, what they're talking about here, is that the headlines read that home values are down 50%. That was my first interpretation. When I read some of these headlines, I was like, wait, what? The home values are down 50%? No, that doesn't make any sense. What they're saying is that 53% of every single home, not listed homes, not homes that have sold that are not on the market, but all the homes that Zillow has on their platform, and they create these estimates, which are created by algorithms, not real people, not, and I'm going to explain the difference, why this is so important. The estimates have gone down. Big whoop. Why am I saying big whoop? Because that's not a reliable source of data. You guys know who are those that are here that are not new. You guys know that I hang my hat on data because emotions will deceive you. What you think and put together is what you believe. If you don't have anything to back it up, then it doesn't have any spine. It doesn't have any spine. It doesn't have any oomph. It's like building a house out of cardboard. It looks good, and then strong wind. See ya. The estimates I got an issue with, and the reason being, and actually I pulled up an article on this. Uh, this was done by Business Insider not too long ago, and it talked about our Zestimate obsession and why, and this was December 18th of last year. Doesn't really matter because it goes into the history. Kind of talks about where estimates came from and how they come about. And this might be something that you've heard before, the whole nine yards, but bear with me. When Zillow was debuted in 2006, they launched the Zestimate. And the Zestimate, free, unbiased valuation, 40 million houses in the US, based on a proprietary algorithm. Yes, it is unbiased valuation. It is free. It is done by a computer. It is done by AI. They take all of these things into consideration without even seeing the house. It says many industry insiders, talks about how, the initial rush as far as, folks being able to go on Zillow and see what their house is worth, what they think the house is worth, and believing it to be true. It says many industry insiders, however, regard the number as a starting point at best and dangerously misguided at worst. What they're talking about here, and being in this, industry, being in the real estate industry for almost 30 years, um, I was here when Zillow was born. I was here well before 1996. I was here 10 years before Zillow was even a thought of, a speck of an idea. Um, the way that Zillow comes up with these numbers, and yes, it's a very, very, and this article actually goes into the complexity of how those numbers come to be. But at the end of the day, it is AI. And AI has no idea what you have done inside your own home. Doesn't know if it's dated, doesn't know if it's up to date, doesn't know if you've taken care of your yard and your neighbor has not, doesn't know if you added a pool and just haven't, the town may know it. Maybe your town doesn't report it. Maybe they have no idea. They base it on information that is available on the internet. But if your information is not on the internet, if you've been in your home for a very long time and have not sold, it hasn't turned over. A lot of you have. A lot of you've been in the house 20, 25 years. If there's no credible data for your home online, how in the heck are they going to know? How could that possibly be accurate? How could it possibly be accurate? So if it's not accurate, how can they determine that 53% of those homes have lost value if the starting number was wrong? It says, just how accurate are those numbers? Until the house actually trades hands, it's impossible to say. When it sells, and I talk about this a lot, when you're trying to figure out what your house is worth, the thing that you need to do is you need to look at the sold data. You do not look at what is under contract. You do not look at what is listed on the market. Why? Because at the end of the day, a home is worth, and this is the only true measure of value. A home is worth what a buyer's willing to pay. It's as simple as that. It's as basic as that. You can get super detailed in the data. You can get super complicated with the AI, but at the end of the day, none of that stuff matters. During the pandemic, people were paying crazy high prices for homes, and you may say, you know what, they were nuts. Well, you're absolutely that means that house was not for you. But somebody thought it was worth that to them. And did some people make bad decisions? Of course they did. Like, this is human nature, right? This is what's going to happen in the world. Everybody makes bad decisions every day. But what leads them, when leads somebody, nobody's forcing someone's pen at the closing table. No one's stealing money out of their savings account and all the things to force them to buy the house. They're doing it voluntarily. It's the value to them. And I've seen it time and time again. I've gone into houses that I wouldn't pay a nickel for, but this buyer just paid top dollar and then some. Why? For their own personal reasons. It's what the value is to a buyer. And the best data stream for that is what is sold. That, plain and simple. Until it changes hands, until somebody actually trades money for those keys, the data is not accurate. So it says Zillow's own explanation of the methodology and its outcomes can be misleading. The model, the company says, is based on thousands of data points, public sources like county records, tax documents, and multiple listing services, local databases, et cetera, et cetera. Zillow formula also incorporates user submitted info. And if you get a fancy new kitchen, for example, your estimate might see a nice bump up if you let the company know. If you let the company know. And then it goes on to some, median error rates and so forth and whatnot. Here's the thing. Sum up this and what my opinion is on this. You go to the doctors, you need surgery. And the doctor determines that you need, this surgery needs to happen right away, so on and so forth. This is a run-of-the-mill surgery. There shouldn't be any complications. It should be pretty straightforward. Would you trust an AI robot to do that surgery? If it's done millions of times before and it's pretty straightforward, what's the harm? Oh, wait, because everybody's a little different. And what you can't see comes up, and a doctor, can react accordingly and make alterations and think on the fly and all the things to keep you alive. You would never trust it to AI. This is the thing that is happening with this estimate. Now I'm going to flip this and say, you may say, well, Jen, my agent gave me this price. I met with 3 agents. I met with 4 agents. I met with 10 agents, and they all gave me a different price. So where am I supposed to go? You are totally valid in your thought process, and that's why I think estimates have become so relied on. That is why I think that estimates have been the thing that when a home seller meets with an agent, and I heard it, you know, years and years, and off different offices I've gone into talking to different agents and complaining, oh, this estimate's not accurate. It's because of the real estate industry not living up to their professional standard to give them a good price to begin with. So where do you go to try to get that price? There you go. So I think that the industry has enabled it to be so. If that makes good sense to you guys. Let me just check in the chat. So, before I do that, let me just see if, before I do that, I want to just jump back to the article real quick here and just follow this up here. Kind of close the window so I don't get too off track with things. So getting back to the original article, it says that it goes on to say that a lot of these percentages have gone, areas that have gone down in value. It says lower home values are just losses on paper and aren't realized by homeowners unless actual sales prices undercut the initial sale purchase price. Super important to know that what they're talking about are, again, estimates across the board. They're not talking about people that have sold and that those homes are decreasing substantially. They're saying on average, this data of home values that are not real have come down, but they're not real until you sell. And I've said this before, equity is perceived wealth. It's unperceived. It's not real. It's not real. It's not realized until you actually sell. It's like the stock market. It's not actually valid. You can't lose money that you never had. You can't lose money you never had. If I were to look at my estimate or do my home value 5 months ago, 5 years ago, look at today, tomorrow, the whole 9 yards, and am I going to get freaked out if my perceived value drops? No, not unless I'm going to sell. If I sell tomorrow, then that, yes, become more aware of it. But until you actually do that, it's not actually, nobody's actually losing home value because we don't know, regardless of what all these websites say, all the, 2026 predictions and all things. I was reading an article earlier today that was talking about from Fast Company. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring it up real quick here so you guys don't have to take my word for it. It's just hilarious, to be perfectly honest, because the amount of flip-flopping, that these companies are doing, because of the fact that, sorry, on the fly here. This, Fast Company article, was published yesterday, Sunday, and it talks about how that Zillow economists just published their updated 12-month forecast. Okay. Heading into 2025, the 12-month forecast for U.S. homes was positive 2.6%. By the end of April, it was negative 1.7. Late spring, they stopped issuing downward revisions. August, it went to positive 0.4. September, positive 1.2. October, positive 1.9. What the heck? I truly, 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 if an agent tells you that most definitely home values are going to go up next year, next month, they're full of bull cucky. They don't know. These economists, and not to slight them, because that's what this, they're number crunchers. That's what they do for a living. And they're making their best educated guesses based on the data that's available to them. The problem is it's a moving target right now. The economy is not in a great shape. All of these things, the consumer confidence, index that we just talked about, unemployment numbers came out. They're not great. Like all of these moving targets, are they going to get better? Who knows? Who knows? Kind of full circle. This is the reason why I always say, whenever you guys say, when, is now a good time to sell? Is the spring? Is the winter? Do not make your decision based on the market. Ever. Ever. And if you're meeting with an agent now and you're not selling till spring and you get a valuation now, please, please, please keep in mind, do not hang your hat on those numbers, because they could change. They could change for the better. They could change for the worse. Ideally, your agent is going to give you a price range that's going to be super conservative. So usually that's what I do. I go on the real conservative side. I'd rather have my client pleasantly surprised, but prepared for the worst. That's the last thing. It's not my money. I'm not going to spend other people's money by overpromising them something that isn't real. But you gotta be careful, because you just don't know how this is all going to come out in the wash heading into 2026. So that is what's popping with that. Let me get over to the chat, and it is humming. So I'm going to start, actually. So Terry Hopeful asked in the beginning, I wonder if there's ever a long, slow decline. Was there ever a slow crash? Well, so the definition of a crash would be a sudden drop 20% or more in the housing market. So there is no such thing as a slow crash. What we are going through now is an adjustment. It's a normalizing. It's a coming down and it's right now it's this trajectory is good for the market. We are heading in a soft landing. Soft landings are good. Crashes are bad. Airplane crashes are bad. And I'm going to talk about the implications of that in a little bit here because I've got some information for you on that. But yeah, no, it definitely a long, and even it doesn't have to necessarily long, slow. It doesn't have to be long, but because it seems like it's been forever, but it's only been a couple of years, and I think we've got many more years ahead of us of continued um, normalizing. Is the way I'm looking at it. We're not coming down because it was an artificial increase. So you look at those numbers, and I know you guys have seen actually. So this was released 9 o'clock this morning. This will help illustrate what I'm talking about. So this was the federal St. Louis Federal Reserve. This is the All Transaction House Index, was updated this morning, and it kind of shows you where house prices in the U.S. are sitting. We want a nice, slow. This doesn't even show on average. This is that 1.4%, 0.4% increase that we're talking about. Just like we have a slow increase, we're going to have a slow decline. We've got a ways to go. It took us since uh 10 it's 12 years, 13 years since the last, was the lowest point that we were at. We had an adjustment, but even so, here's the thing, guys. The great financial crisis, the great financial crisis, 2006, 7, 8, 9, awful. Prices dropped, plummeted here, 30 to 35%. It was all mortgage driven. The mortgage markets, the banks, if you remember back when all the bailouts from the banks, that housing market was not, it was fueled by investor speculative purchasing, people paying for properties they should never have purchased. There was no equity. They were buying it with fake money. That fueled the fire, and it felt horrendous. But look at this drop compared to this incline. We have got a ways to go. Coming down to this point would be horrendous for the economy. Horrendous. And it's never going to happen. I can say that with a great degree of confidence because if this happens, we got bigger problems. Bigger problems. I don't want to get too deep into this, get too much into the weeds. See if I can find this article. Oh, here it is. I came across this article the other day, and it was written in October 2018. But it says the 10 years later, the financial crisis cost every American $70,000 in lifetime income. What this represents is the impact of a crash on this market. And this was back in 2006 and 7. This number, if a crash happened now, would be higher, substantially higher. Why this is important to know is even if you are not in a position to buy a house right now, even if you're not in a position you want to sell, if there's a housing market crash, you will feel it. This is, $70,000 to every American, even if you're not dabbling in the housing market, you're not refinancing, because of the fact that the housing market reaches and touches everything. How does it touch everything? Well, because it impacts all the home builders and then all those businesses and the trades, but every person that is involved, which it's like that Kevin Bacon's 7 degrees of separation. Case in point, the housing market crashed. The real estate industry. Not asking you to feel bad for the real estate agents. I am not. But just bear with me for a second. It was at one point, there's 900,000, there's over 1 million, real estate agents in this country. Now, granted, a lot of them are not selling any homes, they're selling one house a year, whatnot. But, just for argument's sake, let's say there's, 600,000, 500,000 agents across the country making a living. Okay. Market crashes. Those agents aren't selling homes anymore. Why? And they're not selling homes. They're not making any money. Okay. They're not making any money. They're not buying cars. They're going to cut back on all their expenses. They're not going to buy TVs. They're not going to buy computers. They're not going to buy, disposable goods. They're not going to go to the movies. They're not going to go on vacations. All of those industries, I can guarantee you, when you're watching this, your job is connected to something that is connected to the housing market. And that is why every American pays. When the housing market crashes 30%, 20%, when there is a huge influx, it is devastating to the overall economy. Yes, homes are cheaper, but no one's going to be there to buy them. Well, I shouldn't say no one. You won't, the average consumer will not be there. There'll be investors. There'll be folks that maybe are the tier that is above the average American that doesn't get impacted by that kind of stuff at all because they get, enough money to weather the storm. This is concerning. This is the type of thing. This is the kind of the stuff that is why I bang the drum that a crash is bad. A crash is bad. I thought of an analogy, kind of going off on a tangent here, but I was thinking a lot about this today, and I thought of an analogy with a market crash today, and if there is a body of water that you want to cross, okay, you've got a big pond, a lake, and that lake represents the housing market, and you desperately want to go see your kids on the other side of that lake, but you can't get a boat. All the boats there's not enough boats there, and if there are boats, they're too expensive. So what's the remedy? Is the remedy to drain the lake? You're affecting the environment. You're affecting wildlife. You're affecting everyone that has, some sort of livelihood connected to that lake, whether it be the tourism or whatnot. All of those will be impacted. The home prices will be lower. But is that the better solution? Is that the best solution to impact all of those people that have they don't care about the lake itself? They don't have to get across the lake. They're just innocent bystanders trying to make a living. They're going to be impacted. Would the better solution be to find a cheaper boat, to find more boats than to drain the lake? I think it would. You put more boats, which means you put more carpenters at work and all the things. And, cheaper means more people can afford it. That's what I think needs to happen. We don't need a market crash. We just need to have it more affordable. We need to get the prices down that meet the income levels. So either the income's got to come up or the prices have come down. I think both have to happen in sync because the prices are not going to come down to where income is now. It will not happen. It will not happen. Sellers will have enough equity to weather the storm. They will dig in and just not sell. And if there's a shortage of inventory, it's not going to put a whole lot of pressure, on the folks that are that want to buy, that want to sell. If you don't want, if you're like, well, I don't have to sell, so I'm not going to sell. Well, that really does not create a market crash. A market crash is from when people need to sell no matter what. No matter what, they got to get out. They got to get out. Market crash, and I have to look up the date on this, but the market crash of the great financial crisis, a lot of those were investor properties that they were dumping. They saw the train coming down the tracks and they started dumping like crazy. Boom. Prices started plummeting. Not the case here. Not the case. So anyways, that was my analogy I wanted to share with you guys. I hope that makes sense. And Miss A, I hope that helps you. Would it really matter if the market crashed? So many people. Yes, that I kind of gave you your answer on that long TED talk. Let's see what else you got guys going on here. Make sure you put Q before the question. If you have questions. Oh, we got a win. What's up? AP Good at 526 says finally one buyer backed out. Second buyer closed today. Woohoo! Happy Thanksgiving. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Um, Coors Light 2026 says regarding the economy, I'm seeing several of the items I regularly buy at the grocery store start to finally drop in price. I believe it may be related to fuel prices dropping too. That is encouraging. Um, I will say that up here in New England, up in Massachusetts, I haven't seen it as much. But you know what? Massachusetts is so darn expensive anyways. It's everything's overpriced, ridiculous. But that's encouraging. That is super encouraging. Um, yes, I believe it even said, yeah, if mortgage rates were 0%, I don't think it would help because and that's just my you look at the consumer confidence. If you've got someone that is when you buy and sell a home, it is not based on the thing that the main motivator. You think about this. Really think about this. Yes, you look at the numbers and you look at it from an analytical standpoint because you want to make the right decision for yourself, you want it for your family. You want to not just do this on your gut. You want to plan it out. However, the thing that pushes you, the thing that is ultimately going to get you to do the thing, because selling and buying is not for the faint at heart. It's a roller coaster ride. You're going through something that is not guaranteed. You get a house under contract, you're trying to sell it. There are so many hurdles and so many reasons where a deal can fall apart. So many. I tell my sellers we can celebrate. Yay, we get it under contract, but don't do any real celebrating until you get the money in your hands because anything could happen. And in order to survive that roller coaster, that emotional challenge, you got to have a strong why. You got to have a real reason to do it, and that's based on emotion. And if you don't feel good about what's happening with the consumer confidence, you know what? The houses, I mean, maybe if they're given away, but the fact of the matter is, if zero interest rate, you still got to pay for it. You still got to pay for it. So theoretically, it would never happen. Bankers they need to make money. Let's see here. We got two wins. DZG says two wins. I wasted money steam cleaning my sectional. The guy was afraid to scrub. I paid him, but did the job myself. Woohoo! Then I found a great contractor to upgrade my shower at a great price. You know, I have to tell you, so you guys that know me know that I love a good DIY project, and especially, the older I get, the more I want to push myself, challenge myself into areas uh, that I wouldn't have done maybe 5, 10 years ago. And there is something incredibly satisfying about doing it properly yourself. Saving money is fantastic, but man, it's like a dopamine rush to, you do it and be like, wow, I actually did that. I did it the right way. Woohoo. Um, Angie's seeing some grocery prices going down in California. Definitely not beef though. Um, Interesting. Well, that's good to thanks for sharing that. Let's see. We got retirement is underrated. Hope all's well. Still working on fixing up the house. Talk to your 20% realtor. She's very nice. I look forward to working with her. Need finish on the house. Yay! Fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. Woohoo! Um, Let me see what else we got. Karen lays it right out. Estimates suck and mean nothing. There you go. Amen, sister. We got Clark the realtor in the house. Clark's my one of my referral partners down there in Atlanta. His estimates fluctuate every time you change the price on Zillow. Chat with a realtor to get more of an idea what your home could possibly sell for. Yes, yes, and yes. I I do that. When I receive when you guys reach out for a referral to an agent, to one of my 20% agents, there's a link in the description, some video tell you more about what that means. But I if it's someone looking for a listing agent, I go on Zillow and I check and I do a little homework to make, to see, is the property listed? Has it been listed? Just to kind of get a gauge of the situation. And the Zestimate absolutely does change. It could change day by day. There's little tweaks, little bit of adjustments. Why? Why? What justification does it have, shifting this way or that way? Um, in my experience, the Zestimate is it's always off. It's always off. Sometimes it's much lower. Sometimes it's much higher than what is actually happening in any given market. Because the fact of the matter is, real estate is local, 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 local. I live in Plymouth, Massachusetts. It's 102 square miles. It's a big town, 65 plus residents. In our town, we have 4 or 5 different villages. Within that one town, we have several different markets. Some markets are doing, now it's not substantially different, but the town as a whole is not, appreciating, depreciating at the same rate. And that happens all over the country. I talk to my referral partners, all the time, and I hear the same story. Chattanooga, it was, 3 months ago, 4 months ago is fine. 3 months ago is fine. Now all of a sudden they're seeing some major headwinds, with a lot, excuse me, a lot of price adjustments. And I think I swallowed a piece of dust. Jeez, that figures I would. Mm. But a lot of price adjustments that sellers are now having to try to get ahead of. So it's bonkers. Let's see. Polyfox says, Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Jen, for your excellent content. Just a personal note, I think a house is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Miss H says, when updating your kitchen and bath, and you tell the home insurance company, do they report that update to the county records, and that how the value and part of the home of part of raising? No. So the short answer is no, because the home insurance company, to be honest, it's not up to the home insurance company to report any data. When it comes to the county records, the town assessment records, um, it's up to the homeowner, number one. Number two, if you pulled a permit for any updates, not all updates require permits. You got to check with your town to see, in my town, if you're replacing, say, a floor with another floor, you're not changing any square footage or anything, you don't have to pull a permit. If you're, but if you're doing anything like I had my heating system and hot water, indirect hot water tank replaced, the gas inspector had to come. If the gas inspector comes, the town is made aware. But does that directly impact my tax assessment? No, it does not. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think the tax assessments, when they're looking at valuations, they're looking at it from a very broad perspective. They're looking at, what are similar homes. If you're oceanfront, then all the ocean fronts get adjusted based on square footage, based on number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, the data points that they track, garages and things of that nature. That's, the tax assessment office isn't getting granular with their tax assessments. They're looking at, broad based. It would be too complicated to manage if they got into the granular of managing updates and whatnot. That would be a nightmare for the tax office. So they're going to look at it from a broader perspective, which sometimes is unfair. But that is how they do it. Wiggly Arm says, I think Zillow removes this estimate from their site when your house is listed for sale. I just looked at mine and it is blank now. I've never noticed that before. Interesting. It does depend on the state that you live in. Certain states, Texas in particular. Texas, the multiple listing service, the MLS, controls where the data goes. And the MLS systems, the multiple listing systems, services in Texas do not share sold data. They don't. Um, your estimate should appear. It probably, it's, in terms of the house listed, I did notice that that does disappear. Coincidentally, they're not going to put a different amount on the site for what it's listed. Their estimate is 600 and it's listed at 650. Well, you're hurting the homeowner by doing that, and the 600 may be a total bogus number. So that is a good thing that they took that off. I know there's a new service. I was talking to my good friend Jackie Baker about this yesterday. Actually, there's a Zillow service that is providing guidance on offers. Guys, do not use that service. Do not. It is not reliable. Just like estimates are not reliable. How in the heck is a evaluation or how can they possibly advise on what you should offer in a house when they've never seen it? They've never seen the data. They've never seen the comps. They've never seen. I mean, they can see what they think they see online, but just because features on the neighbor's house are listed online doesn't tell you the whole story. It doesn't tell you the story that the neighbor next to them looks like a scene out of Sanford and Sons. You guys remember that show, right? And which absolutely hurts your property value. So you got to think of all the details on that. All right. I do go back and read this chat after the live stream because there's just so many great comments in here. I like to get a giggle. You guys share the greatest stuff. Alex SN says, exception to Jen's statement is folks taking out loans on perceived value of home. Zestimate question mark. So are you asking on the Zestimate to determine what your value is on an equity loan? Which is a good point, as far as that, but you've got to be careful because the banks, it depends on what they have. The banks have an error of margin when they are looking at issuing a loan, and they will only go up to typically 80% of your perceived value for an equity loan or equity line of credit. If there is enough margin, so say that they look at his estimate, and based on that estimate, if it's 10% plus or minus, if your 80% max is still well within that error of margin, then they may say, you know what, that's that estimation. They have their own valuations. It's not estimates, but they have their own valuations that they go by. Automated underwriting services that provide those estimates. But, it depends. If you're mortgaged such that you're riding the line, they're going to order a traditional appraisal. So, but the thing of it is the estimate, you want to look, if you want to use that to kind of get a general idea, that's one thing. But if you are riding the line and you're taking money out for, say, a home improvement loan or something of that nature, to be perfectly honest, I would reach out to either a real estate agent or pay for an appraisal. An appraisal could cost you $400 to $600 depending on where you are in the country. If you have a relationship with a great agent and they know your house, and it's the agent that helped you buy it, or whatnot, they can put together some numbers for you to give you a ballpark. I know my clients reach out to me, it's quite often. They're not uncommon for them to do that, and I'll say, hey, roughly I've been in your house. I know what it looks like. This is roughly what I think it's worth right now. And that is enough to make the determination whether you're going to get that loan or not. So, yes, and yes. Corsley says, I know some professionals don't like it, but I still like the old-fashioned price per square foot as a starting point plus lot size. Then I start working on the properties, pluses and minuses. I think a lot of folks ask about the price per square foot. You have to keep in mind that the price per square foot is not going to be the same This is a good segue, actually. It's not going to be the same because of the fact that locations differ, amenities differ, neighborhoods differ. Price per square foot on one part of the town versus price per square foot in another part of the town might be totally different. There is, this is actually a good segue into this article. So the National Association of Home Builders did a study, and the full study actually with these articles will be in the description. You scroll down to the bottom of the study, and you can download the entire at the bottom of the article, there's a link for the full study. But it was a two-part study. The first part was, what features add the most. I'm going to come back to this in a second, because the second part was location, 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 how place and neighborhood shape home values. This is where price per square foot gets a little tricky. And yes, appraisers will look at price per square foot, but they have a very different approach to determining value. Appraisal value versus market value are two totally different numbers. The appraised value is based solely on history. What was it worth based on the comps? That's it. Market value is also based on history, but taking into account the current state and the immediate future state. You're in a depreciating market. You're in an appreciating market. You're trying to look into a crystal ball to see what a buyer is willing to pay right now, what the buyer will be willing to pay in a month from now. So the value takes into consideration what it sold for, but also what would a buyer pay today? Because a comp that sold 2 or 3 months ago may not be the same. So you can't just rely on those comps. You've got to look at what somebody, what changes in the market change that value to bring it to today. But this study talked about, the value, they looked at, they did a study on what affects the value. And at the top of the list was location and neighborhood context. It says location, and, it's an old real estate adage, right? So, location, location, location. Well, it remains one of the strongest driving factors of home value. Homes, and depending on where they are, the study broke down different areas of the country, why certain areas of the country, how they rank compared to New England. They use New England as like the base, and then plus or minus depending on where you live, which they go into down here, and how it compares. But the location, the overall location, and the estimated home value impact of by neighborhood and the neighborhood scoring. This kind of answers, kind of ties into your point about the price per square foot there at Coors Light, because of the fact that pricing it based on, the square foot, yes, you can tie it into features, but the value of the square foot, when you're looking at a listing, the listing is going to take into consideration, you've got that house that's worth $500,000, and all the features is what is represented by that 500,000. 500,000 divided by the square footage is going to give you a price per square foot. It's not an apples to apples comparison. It's not. It's not, because you're looking at this other house. The buyers were willing to pay a lot more. Why? It had a gourmet kitchen. It had a chef's kitchen. The inside was completely updated. It was decked out. So their price per square foot is going to be much higher. Now, yes, you can add and subtract for those differences, but there's a lot more, in my opinion, there's a lot more margin for error when you start doing it that way. I never look at price per square foot. I don't. And the reason being is because I do look at features. I look at the house as a whole, and then I break down based on, what's a bedroom worth, what's a bathroom worth, which, interestingly enough, segue back to the articles here. What home features, and this was posted last week, what home features add the most value? And this stuff hasn't changed. Home size, which is actually kind of interesting. Home size is one of the strongest value drivers in today's market. Estimated percentage change in home value by physical home features. I mean, very interesting. It says, compared with smaller homes under 1,000 square feet, homes between 1,000 and 2,000 are valued about 17% higher. Moving up to homes between 2 and 3,000, square foot increases value about 30%, while homes with 3,000 square feet or more adds 55% more to the market value. If you look at these numbers and how do you equate that to price per square foot? When price per square foot is going to impact a 1,000 square foot home a lot differently than a 3,000 square foot home. You can't weigh it the same. That is why I think price per square foot is not a reliable source, or not a reliable way to determine value, and whatnot. So, not that I'm trying to call you a liar or anything. I'm not. I'm a very uh, analytical person. I like to rely on the data, and all my years in the industry, the going about that. If the price per square foot was a reliable way, I'd do it all day long. Hmm. Yes, Wiggly Arm Guys is The Big Short. Great movie. Uh-huh. That was it's kind of scary. Life imitating art? No, or art explaining life. Dun, 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 dun. What it says, increasing income. First, we have to stop the bleeding constant layoffs. It's killing a lot of things, including housing. Yes, it is. The layoffs and why unemployment was actually higher is, it depends on where you're looking for a job. There are jobs, but the problem is a lot of these jobs are not the folks, they're not the jobs that folks are looking for. I got my friend David Matney in the house. Good to see you, my friend. We need to catch up. I haven't seen you in a while. I haven't chatted. Mary Beth in the house. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Prices for groceries in Pittsburgh still high. Fuel is a bit lower. Still can't find a home in neighboring counties. Pittsburgh is not that I want to do crystal ball, but all the factors, everything that I'm hearing, all the information I'm reading, research, Pittsburgh is going to be a hot spot in 2026. We'll visit that in 6 months and see if my predictions are true. I've had a lot of referrals coming in and out of Pittsburgh as of late. Yes, it is. My kids got this for me for Christmas a few years ago. It's ginormous and I love it. It's my favorite. I said, "Oh, to us, Mom, you're our Wonder Woman." I'm like, "Oh, waiting for the big ask." Let's see. The Beautiful Ones Imagines is going live for listing tomorrow night. 6 months ago, I was told list 520. We are listing at 480 tomorrow. Market plummeting in Ohio River Valley. Well, first off, congratulations for going listing your house. But number two, my intuition. I don't know your market at all, but if you're going from 520 to 480 in 6 months, my suspicion is that 480 is getting you ahead of the curve, which would be a great thing. You don't want to, in a depreciating market, you don't want to align yourself with your neighbors, in competition. You want to undercut, because if the trajectory of the market is doing this and you meet it here, guess what's going to happen? It's a pretty short period of time, you're going to be chasing the market. Chasing the market is a kiss of death when you have your house on the market. Don't want to chase the market. Yes, it's going to sting if you have to make a price adjustment, but you know what? You got to look at the data, look at what else is selling, and then go a little bit lower. It is the strategy that will work to make sure that you don't get stuck. Foodie says, where does 20% come from? So one of the things that I talk a lot about in my videos and 30 years of doing this, and being in the real estate industry and watching the decline, the massive decline in the real estate industry, the real estate agent industry, especially over the last 10 plus years. Decline in professionalism, decline in their commitment to their craft, the laziness. They, they don't want to work, but they don't want to spend the time to learn the market. They don't want to learn how to do things the proper way, and they don't put clients first. The greed in the real estate market is disgusting. It is. They will do things. The infighting is gross, and it's all about getting ahead. It's all about it. This industry has completely lost, not completely, which is what I'm going to get to in a second, but it has overwhelmingly shifted their focus from the consumer. National Association of Realtors will tell you, oh no, consumer first, consumer first. Yeah, I'm sorry. If they're watching, I don't care. I think it's all BS. Why? Because the reason why there's so many darn rules is because realtors can't manage themselves. If they actually did things the way they're supposed to do, it's supposed to work, and did it with some integrity, and actually help the client instead of helping their pocket, this industry wouldn't need as many rules, but it does. And so my issue with that, and why I actually started this channel, was that predominantly consumers don't know the difference between an 80% of the industry is in that category. They don't know the difference between that and 20%, and honestly, it's probably 90-10 at this point. Because even though the majority of the industry is in that category, that drives me crazy and is doing a disservice, and is the reason why real estate agents, get that bad taste in the back of your mouth when you're a real estate agent. It's because of that majority. The thing of it is hiding in the shadows, not hiding in the shadows, but in the background, quietly, there's a group that are doing things the right way, that are doing things with the client first, that will listen to a client's needs. And if after hearing what their goals are, what they need, what's important to them, it's in the client's best interest to not sell, to not buy, they will advise them as such. Not worried about the pocket, not worried about how much money they're losing or making or whatever. All their advice is based on that. Not only that, they constantly are learning. They're constantly looking for ways to improve. They have years in the business, but also they are committed to their craft. High level integrity. Problem is average consumer has no idea, can't tell the difference between those two agents. Sheep's and wolf clothing. You have a really nice agent. I've seen this all the time. Super nice agent. She's so sweet. He or she. They're so nice. They're so kind. But they don't know what the heck they're doing. You ask them, is now a good time to sell? Oh no, wait till spring. Without asking you any questions whatsoever. That's an 80% agent. Why? Because the answer should be, well, is it a good time for you? Because really, truly, 12 months out of the year, there is not a bad time to sell. It's only a bad time for you to sell, depending on your personal financial situation, your personal situation, family situation, all the things. But if they don't ask you any questions, how can they give you advice? That's what I mean by 20% agent. I do the 80-20. It's the Pareto principle. It works. Honestly, it's 90-10. Now, the 20% referral, what I'm referring to is that I have pre-vetted. I have agents, referral partners all over the country. I've got about 200, almost 280 at this point. As the need arises, when someone reaches out to me for a referral, I will go through. If I don't have someone, I have a couple networks, high-level networks that I can dig into first, and then I vet them and I research and I see how they're showing up on social media. And then I have conversations and interview them to see if they operate at my sometimes ridiculously high level standard of what the level I hold myself to, and not to say this is not self-serving, but I'm just saying, like, we can, as an industry, we can do better. So that's a service I provide to you guys. Yes, I'm transparent. I get a referral fee if you decide to use that agent. This is a common practice. Agents will give a referral fee for, being introduced, for the introduction. But there's no pressure. If you interview 3 agents, which you should be doing anyways, then you don't use it, that's fine. But if you do, I do get a referral fee, but you guys don't pay a nickel because the agents that I have in my referral network, they don't charge you different prices. They don't charge you different commissions based on if it's a referral or not. I never did. My fee is my fee. The only difference, in the sake of full transparency, are those dreaded relocation companies that gouge the heck out of real estate agents. Literally, relocation companies stink, and they have to figure out a way to pay for all those extras that they offer their employees and all the things. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded and too boring, but that's my TED talk on the 20% agent. Let me see what else is popping here. Sorry, I got something flew into my eye. Fun times. Mm. Yes, Norton says Zillow in Texas shows estimate for homes on the market. Mine doesn't. This estimate has gone down each time I've had to lower the price. Yeah, they're just chasing the market, chasing the market, chasing the market. Let's see. Lisa says we are in Southeaston. Oh, you're not too far. Massachusetts just want to sell our 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with an in-law in our basement and buy a mobile home due to medical issues. Every home will sell. Every home will sell. As my grandmother would say, there's a butt for every seat. It's just a matter of finding the right butt. Interview, yes. Elizabeth says, Lisa, interview 3 agents. Yes, yes, yes. If you'd like me to connect you to an agent, I am happy to do so. Full disclosure, it is Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I am going to take Thursday off. I am taking Friday off. Friday after Thanksgiving. I do not do Black Friday. To be honest, it's my I start wrapping things up with my business and start doing some planning and the next year and all the things and then spend some time with my kids and stuff like that on the weekend. So it usually takes me 3 to 4 business days if I don't have an agent already in my network. If I do have an agent that meets your needs, I can get back to you pretty quickly. But if I need to interview, it takes me a little longer. This will be a little longer during the holidays, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Skate says the real estate market in New England seems to be active with properties continuing to go under contract, especially for this time of year. I 100% agree. People, and that's the thing is that, again, and I know I'm repeating myself, if an agent tells you don't sell during the holidays, do not, that's not, no, that's not good advice unless it's not a good time for you to sell for other reasons. If you've got somebody reached out to me the other day and they said, I've got my agent so we can list, but and actually the agent was pushing them to list, which is not a good sign. And he said, but I don't feel comfortable with it, and I really want to take my time in sorting this and doing that and all that stuff. I said, then take the time. There will be buyers any time of the year. There are buyers. When I look at what's happening in my market, I go on in the morning and I look at what property. It's not 0 properties. There are homes that are going under contract every day. Every day. Now, yes, it might be a little different than it was 3, 4 years ago, but the people are still moving. It's all about finding the right house. It's all about finding the right house. Miss H says, yes, lots of jobs people don't want to work are there, but when facing homelessness and hunger, sometimes taking that unwanted job works and helps. Work to live and not live to work to death. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. I don't want to be too preachy. But this is my show. It's my show. I can do what I want to. Work ethic in this country. It's a little different. A little different than when I was growing up. I worked any old job, whatever I could get. My husband would do the same thing. Worked all kinds of jobs to put food on the table. Put money in the pocket, all the things to make a living. People are picky. overly picky. It's hard. I understand everybody's situation is different, but you know, earlier this year, there's a lot of talk about manufacturing, new manufacturing. Trump administration wants to add all these manufacturing jobs. Did a little bit of research. The Manufacturing Institute, the organization for manufacturer laborers, put out some information earlier this year, and at the same time that the Trump administration was talking about adding all of these manufacturing jobs, the manufacturing organization posted that they had an outstanding, it was over 400,000 jobs all over the country that were unfilled. Unfilled. But yet we have rising unemployment. Why is that? Why is that? I think a lot of it has to do with jobs are changing. And I talked about this a little bit last week with AI, that a lot of jobs, and I went into depth a couple weeks ago with all the layoffs with Amazon and UPS and Target and Home Depot. And yeah, and many more companies are laying off. A lot of those layoffs are not on the floor, boots on the ground folks. Those are upper management jobs. And the jobs that they're getting rid of are being replaced by AI. You don't need two different people to do the same job that you can do used in automation with. So does that mean those jobs are completely disappeared? No, because somebody has to oversee AI. And what does that mean to the average worker? Yes, their old job as they knew it may be becoming obsolete. But behind it are new jobs that require training. And a lot of these companies, and the things that will need to happen is they're going to have to offer training. And a lot of them are training for these new jobs. So if if you're a stick in the mud and you say, this is what I do, this is what I want to do, I don't want to do anything else, you're unemployed. And not everybody gets to do what they want to do for work, but it's work and it puts money on the table. And the number of people that are not willing to learn the new job are in the cold. Is that the only reason? No, but that's just my opinion about the fact that, just like anything else, there has to be an adjustment. And when I got in the real estate business, we didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones. We had a copy machine. That's it. When they rolled into computers and computers came out, holy cow. The number of agents that wouldn't even touch a computer. They were like, this is ridiculous, and I'm just going to do things the old-fashioned way. I see that now. I see that now with folks, agents that have been in the business a long time, and they don't want to, adopt any new strategies, any new practices, business practices. They want to do things the old-fashioned way. It just doesn't cut the mustard. It just doesn't cut the mustard. So I agree with you, Miss H. That's my my opinion on that matter. It's just an interesting thing to watch. It's an interesting thing to unfold. And I wonder where it's going to head into the future. Blake says, I will admit I'm not looking forward to looking for a realtor because of what you just said. I will reach out to you for Fort Wayne area in a few weeks. I think I have a great agent in Fort Wayne, actually. A few weeks probably, as I am not ready, really able to look until February. Until then, enjoy my coffee down here in Guatemala. So the first thing I would say is, and this is for anyone that is thinking about buying or selling, do it early. Do it earlier than you think you want to do it. You need to do it. Only because, yes, it's a pain. This is why I'm banging this drum so hard about interviewing agents, because one of the reasons why the real estate agent industry is getting away with providing this low-level, crappy service is because they're not being challenged. They're not being challenged. Interview one agent, you avoid the pain, you say, fine, I'll just do it and pay and whatever. The fact of the matter is you're hurting yourself. You're hurting yourself because you're going to, no, not just about the experience, but it's the amount of money you end up spending. And you're going to be paying that agent the same you would a good agent. The fees are typically they're no different. But Here's the thing, you may have to interview more than 3 agents because, not every agent that I refer is the right agent for. I mean, I do my very level best to connect you, but it could be a personality conflict. It could be the thing that on paper and this agent's a great agent and ethical and all the things, but you just don't mesh. It happens. It's the whole there's a butt for every seat analogy. Sometimes they're not the right butt. And sometimes you have to go through multiple agents until you get to an agent that you can trust, that is giving you good data, that's meeting you where you're at. It's meeting you where you're at. If you have questions and you feel uncertain and you don't feel like you're convinced, you understand exactly what's going to happen, you understand how the process is going to go, you understand what the expectations of the agent, how the agent's going to help you. If you don't, then they're not the right person. They're not, which means you have to continue looking. And it is a pain. It's like shopping for a doctor, a car shopping even. I can't stand car shopping. Yeah, all those things. Go to the grocery store. Honestly, I hate going to the grocery store. But it's a necessary evil. So you know what? The faster you do it, the faster you can get her done. Get her done. But I agree with your sentiment. Let's see. Let's see. Um, we've got a question. He says, what is the likelihood? Abdul Shabez says, what is the likelihood of negative interest rates coming to the U.S.? U.S. banks will never show those negative interest rates to savvy mortgagers who pay down points to borrow. I don't know. Negative interest rates? I'm not sure I've heard of negative interest rates. As far in terms of, I had to do some research on that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're referring to there on negative interest rates. Banks will never show those negative interest rates to savvy mortgagers who pay down points to borrow. Interesting. I don't know. I would say that anything that is negative when it comes to interest rates that essentially, this is how the banks are making money and digging into their bottom line. There's no, what's the motivation to even mortgage the asset? What's the motivation to lend you the money? And then pay the servicer for the lender. Let's see. Norton's got a question. Central Texas is my location. Do you think taking home off the market now and relisting in mid-January, we must sell? I know you have addressed this before. Yeah, I mean, it really depends. And it's hard for me to give you advice without understanding all the nuances of your situation. It's hard for me to understand, to give you advice based on not only your situation, but your situation in your market. Um, there's a lot of moving parts with you're selling and you're buying, what your family motivations are, why you want to sell, how long it's been on the market, if it's been on the market, how the inventory is moving. I mean, I know that talking to my referral partners down there, inventory, just like anywhere else, if it's priced right, there are I hear from my referral partners all the time that are successfully helping folks sell and buy in Texas, in Florida. Homes are selling. Those states, just because it's a challenging environment, doesn't mean nothing is selling. It just means that you've got to be super strategic about it. You've got to be, have the mindset of, you got to be laser focused, and you've got to price it for the condition. End of story. You have the house, it's in the condition that it needs to be. Maybe you're like, this is all I can do, this is all I want to do, this is all that makes sense. Great. Price it to reflect the condition. And then if it were me, you probably price it just a little bit lower. Because yes, traffic is going to be a little bit slower this time of year. But here's the thing, the only buyers that are out are serious. Buyers that are out right now are serious. If you're looking to buy a house right now, you've got a strong why behind it. You've got a serious motivation, which means you walk into something that is priced fairly and it meets all your criteria and you can see yourself living there. You're ready to go. You want to go. You're going to make an offer. you're gonna want to buy that house. So I would say, oh, you said taking it off the market. So that's the other thing is how long has it been on the market, for? Because if your house has been on the market for a while and it hasn't sold, you're probably, overpriced. You may be chasing the market. The only benefit of taking it off and relisting it, number one, gives you a break, some breathing room. Number two, um, depending on the state, I don't know how it is in Texas, does reset the number of days on the market. The longer the house is on the market, it does become stigmatized. Buyers can see how long it's been on the market, which means when they make an offer, if that house has been on the market for 30 days, 60 days, they're not offering full price, typically, because they know that you've been waiting for the right buyer. So they're going to undercut you. The longer it's on the market, the bigger the gap between the list price and the sale price. So that is true, but with you saying you must sell, again, it all depends on what the motivation is. If it's worth it to you to lose a little bit of money to get it out of the house, keep it on the market. Hope that makes sense. Let's see what we got. QQQ. What's the best way to negotiate home inspection repairs with the buyers after we dropped our price sufficiently? Sufficiently. So the big thing with home inspection repairs, and it really depends on the savviness, the expertise of your listing agent and whoever's on the other side with the buyer's agent. Here's what could happen to set the stage. If you have a listing agent or say a seller's agent, if you have a listing agent and a buyer's agent, or just you have a savvy listing agent but a crummy 80% buyer's agent, ran into this recently. All they're going to do is be a messenger. They're not going to advise the buyer. They're not going to coach the buyer. They're not going to educate the buyer. The buyer says, I want this, and they basically forward the email. That's it. They don't know how. They don't know how. What they need to do, and this is where it gets a little tough, is deciding what is necessary, what is reasonable. It all comes down to what is reasonable for your area, for your house. What is reasonable for repairs? What was taken into consideration when you negotiate the price? Was the house priced to reflect it needs some work? Was the agreed on price reflecting the fact that it's not in perfect condition, that maybe the roof is not leaking, but it's aging? If the price reflects the condition based on, and though that includes some of those repairs, then it's not a reasonable request. However, if the home inspector finds some safety issues or an active leak in the water heater, or things that you may not even known about, is it reasonable for the buyer to ask for those to be either fixed or compensated for those repairs? I think it is reasonable, because they made an offer, negotiated on the pretense that the roof didn't leak, the heating system wasn't leaking, those types of things, what they could see. If they start trying to negotiate on things that they could see before, as trim is all rotted, and now they made the offer, negotiated, and now they're going to come back and be like, we want 10 grand off because the trim's rotted. Come on. You could see that when you made the offer. Seriously, that's not a reasonable request, because it's priced to reflect that the trim is rotted. You see what I'm saying? Here's the thing you want to keep in mind. On the seller side, you need to, if you have an agent that you can trust. If you don't fully trust them, then you keep this to yourself. But if you have an agent you fully can trust, they will know, they'll be able to guide you based on your motives, what your why is. Why are you selling? If you have a strong need to sell, and the need to get out of your home to go to wherever the next destination is strong enough for you to say, I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna like it, but I need to get out. Doesn't mean you need the agent tells the buyer that. The agent will work on your behalf, not kill the deal, but get to the best possible position that before you accept doing anything. That being said, I'm a fan of some things you can fix, some things you should do a credit for. It depends on the situation. If you're not in a position to, organize contractors and such, do a credit. That might be a better way to go. You may end up spending more money that way, but it again depends on what your personal situation is. Hope that helps. I'm gonna actually about 102 of you guys have answered the poll. I'm gonna get to the poll in a couple minutes here. What I wanted to do though is before I lose track of time, I want to get over that California AI article real quick. Any comment on Redfin's 1.5% seller agent rate? What I'm going to say is if you're comparing apples to apples and it's a 20% agent, you get what you pay for. You do. Real estate agents predominantly are self-employed. What does that mean to you? Nothing. Doesn't to the consumer doesn't care, shouldn't care. We pay our own expenses, pay our own taxes, pay self-employment tax, all our own overhead, our own homeowners, our own health insurance. We have no 401k, all 9 yards. Doesn't matter to the consumer. It shouldn't matter. Doesn't matter. Just like it doesn't really, I don't take into consideration how much it costs for my mechanic to run his business. What I care about is what is he charging me. However, there is one of the reasons, even though there's been a ton of pushback about the commission rates, the reason why the commission rates haven't changed is because there is a threshold of being able to run your business. When you get down to a 1.5% level, I will tell you right now, I can't afford all of those expenses at 1.5%. It's a lot of money, yes, but at the end of the day, I can't make enough of a living to keep paying my mortgage and all the things. This is one of the reasons why across the board, agents charge 2, 2.5, 3, whatever they charge. It's above 2% typically. When you get down to the lower, they're called discount brokerages. You're getting what you pay for. So you're not going to get a full service agent at 1.5%. The business model doesn't work. It doesn't work. The only caveat to that is if you don't care about not getting full service. I will say that none of my referral partners do anything under 2%. Why? Because yes, they're full service, but it's a devotion to their craft. It's their studying. It's their proficiency. It's the fact that they're devoted to go the extra mile whenever necessary for their client. That in itself means that they're not going to offer a discount. They're not going to be discount brokerages. Discount brokerages means your name on a file, which means if you've got someone that really is motivated by volume, they're going to have to sell 2 houses versus the one that a professional agent sells. Now they've got to sell 2. They're going to be carrying more of a workload. What's the probability that you're going to get really good advice from them on negotiation, on marketing, on making a determination to buy a house? What's the chances of you getting, great marketing advice? So does everybody need all that? No. Just like I feel like, for sale by owner, sometimes if the shoe fits, then that's what you should do. For sale, not everybody should hire a real estate agent. If you're comfortable doing it yourself, then don't hire an agent. Keep the money and sell it to yourself. I'm not saying that everybody should hire an agent. And maybe a 1.5% agent, but you got to understand clearly it's not apples to apples. You need to understand exactly what you're getting for the money. And that's probably the biggest mistake that I see happen by misleading agents is they lead you to believe that they're going to give you the same level of service as the agent that's not a discount brokerage. They are not. That's the way it works. So, but whether you choose to go with them is entirely up to you. So long as your expectations are met. HO8 says, what's your opinion of a realtor who comes out and says they have a buyer for property on their first visit to the property? First off, I'd be suspicious. Because it could be true. It sounds oftentimes like if they're just seeing you and they're visiting you for the first time, it sounds like a ploy to try to get your business. I've seen this more times than not. They promise you, you get excited, you hire them. Oh, the buyer's not interested. Huh, imagine that. Now, could they possibly have a buyer? Yes. If you have an active agent that maybe is even working on a team, they have a lot of buyers that they're out looking for property because there's a lot of shortage of property and there's buyers on standby. Now the question becomes, who are they representing? Because typically an agent should represent and stay representing the first client that they met. If they met the buyer first, they know all the intimate details about that buyer, and now they're looking to represent you. Now you're entering into a dual agency where they're representing theoretically both sides. If you've watched any of my content, you know I am adamantly opposed to dual agency. It's not possible. Unless you have two brains. It's not possible to represent two people at the same time. You will lose disclosure in dual agency. When you're not a dual agent, when I'm representing a seller, everything the buyer agent tells me, I go back to the seller with everything. And if the buyer's agent's not a great agent, they're kind of, showing their cards, I'm giving that, hey, that information flows right from me to the seller. A dual agent can't do that. A dual agent cannot share buyer information with you and vice versa. It puts you at a serious disadvantage. So if they say they have a buyer for the property, number one, I'd ask more specifics. Number two, you say, well, great, how does that work for me? And if they say, well, there's another team member that's actually working with them, then you got to dig deeper to see how their team dynamics work and all the things. Because certain teams have set up systems to handle dual agency properly and ethically. But it's hard. It is not easy. But more times than not to be a pessimist, because I'm cautious optimist by nature, but I would be suspicious. I really would. Let me see here. See if you guys have any other QQQs before I get on to the thing here. Angie says, why pay for all the repairs if the price drop takes the repairs into consideration? Good question. Why the lower price to start off with then? Very good question. I think it's all about, that comes back to the question of, does it make sense to do the repairs? Period. You've got to look at the return on investment. Some repairs make sense, some do not. Some people don't even have if you don't have the money, if funds are tight, go with the bare minimum. And at the end of the day, you can sell a house without making any repairs. You're just going to have to compensate in the price. But you do what you can, but only do the things that make sense. Only do the things that make sense, that have the high return on investment. The things that, if you're going to spend $20,000 and it might only increase your value by $5,000, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't make the repairs. Now, if you're making repairs to improve the quality of your life and you're going to enjoy those repairs for the next 5 to 10 years and then sell, then that's a personal decision. Then do it. That's a quality. You're improving your quality of life. But if you're doing it and planning to sell anytime in the near future, no. You want to. I'm a fan of minimal updates. I'm a fan of doing the things that involve the least amount of money out of your pocket, and then price it accordingly. Things like cleaning, painting, organizing, decluttering, those don't actually cost you, they don't cost you a lot of cash money. It's not a big outlay. It's time. It costs you a lot of time, but you're not actually spending money to get those. And those will help. They'll help you sell. Maybe indirectly puts more money in your pocket, but more importantly, it helps it sell faster. I'm a fan of doing that. I really am. I don't know. I'm a pragmatic when it comes to that stuff. Um, sell what you have. Sell what you have. All right, I want to jump over to this article real quick, guys, because I want to jump on this because I think this is something that might be popping up in the future. So, this article came out Sunday. California's new disclosure rule for digitally altered real estate marketing. This is something that has been, it's actually been out in real estate land for years, but it's coming to a forefront as AI becomes a bigger issue. And it says, this was, it says on October 10th, Governor Newsom signed into law first in the nation disclosure requirement for digital alteration of real estate marketing materials. Keep in mind, a lot of the disclosures, there's a lot of state disclosures, but a lot of the rules that agents follow are exactly that. They're rules by the National Association of Realtors. Yes, an agent could risk losing their license, but they're not breaking the law. This is a law with fines in addition to other things. It says that this new bill, the Assembly bill, which will go into effect January 1st, 2026, requires licensed real estate brokers and salespersons to clearly disclose when an image used in real estate marketing has been digitally altered, and it makes it a criminal offense to fail to make this disclosure. The law provides that a real estate broker, salesperson, or person acting on their behalf, you'll notice that they said salesperson or person acting on their behalf, meaning assistants, meaning third party video editing, photo editing companies, okay, shall not include in the advertisement or promotional material a statement disclosing that the image has been altered and a link. They're requiring a link to a publicly accessible internet website URL QR code that includes and clearly identifies the original unaltered image. I can tell you because I do my own photography because I enjoy it immensely. I'm an amateur photographer, never paid. I would never want to do it for money. But I thoroughly enjoy doing it on my own listings. And part of that process is the editing of those photos. I could spend hours editing. I have a terrific company that I lean on to do that for me. That company also does staging. And when I send those photos to them, they have all these options that I can check off to say, do they want, a fire in the fireplace? They want a picture on the TV. Do we want to improve the landscaping? Do we want to remove items? All the check boxes. I always uncheck the box that says improve the landscaping because I can tell. Just looking at an image, I can tell whether that image, that landscaping is BS or not. You're in the middle of winter and your grass is green, bright green. It's completely it's very misleading. And what it becomes a problem is now the buyers have that expectation. They pull up. Now immediately as a seller, you're going to be hurt because when that buyer pulls up, their thought process is, wow, the seller lied. Because what the agent is doing is reflecting on you. They're thinking the seller and maybe the seller's agent, but more so like the seller's trying to pull a fast one. They're just trying to get us here because the lawn looks like crap, but the picture makes it look great. Now, yeah, we'll go see it, but they've already got a negative opinion on the house and they haven't even stepped foot in it yet. Now, as a buyer, you know what? Can you imagine how ticked off you must be when you're like pull up and the yard's dirt? Because, oh, wait, they did replace the septic system. I've seen this so many times. They replaced the septic system, but there's no grass. Oh, there will be. There's we're putting seed down. Yeah, but you know what? In New England, you put some seed down, and if you do it in the spring, you're gonna have weed central. You're gonna have weed central, and even on a good day, you put it in the fall. It takes a couple of years to get a nice thick lawn. because it requires watering and overseeding and watering and overseeding and all the things. So it's super misleading. So this kind of stuff, I'm super glad that they're doing this. I think it's more, the altered image, not as much as staging. And I'll be, I typically, when I do stage properties, I will do both images in in the public listings. I'll do both of them back to back. So you click on it and it's the image with the dining room table. The next image is without the dining room table, so people clearly know that it's been digitally staged. um Putting a fire in the fireplace digitally when the flue is no good, and there hasn't been a fire in that fireplace, and there won't be unless there's repairs being made. Man, it's super misleading. That is what's fueling this fire. This, no pun intended. um, it says the term digitally altered image is defined in the statute to mean an image that has been altered through the use of photo editing software, AI, to add, remove, change elements. There's a dark spot on the roof, and they change it so that dark spot disappears. That's bogus. I had a listing recently where I did do that, but that was because they had a car parked behind the garage. They're car collectors. They had a car that's parked behind the car. The car doesn't go with the house. So I actually edited those photos myself. I on that particular one because I wanted to strategically remove the car, but what it did is it didn't create a false sense of landscaping. All it did was expand the landscaping, in place of it, so that the car disappeared. The car doesn't come with the house. Doesn't come with the house. But to intentionally hide the view out the windows, or that type of thing, super misleading. The thing it does not appeal to, though, it doesn't apply to, is it says, however, does not include images that were only lighting, sharpening, white balance, color correction, angle, and so forth. In other words, editing the image to look its best in its raw state is fine. It's when you start to artificially and um, adjust these images. So why am I bringing this up? Because the reason being is that, specifically in real estate, things move from west to east in this country. Buyer agency started in on the West Coast way before it came to the East Coast. A lot of rules, regulations start on the West Coast and make its way over. I think this is something that we're going to see in the future. I really do. I think this is something, I don't know if it'll become a law necessarily, but maybe the local associations, the state local associations will adopt it. But more importantly, I wanted to bring this up to you because you need to, even if you're working with a 10% agent or 20% agent, you still need to oversee them. You can't do hands off. Okay, you're the expert. I'm not going to have to worry about it at all now. And it's I'm going to turn it over to you. You do what's best. No, because it's your house and you're responsible. And some agents will not know if they get them back from the editor and all the things, and maybe they miss things. Just monitor it. Make sure that you don't have images that are not true, to stay ahead, because it does hurt you. All right, I'm gonna get to the poll. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see here. So the poll is: do you want the housing market to crash? So we've got not sure what to believe, 18% of you. Yes, 21% of you said yes, the crash will mean it'll be more affordable. 23% said no, I don't want to crash. It's bad news for the economy. And 37%, the largest segment of you, said no, I don't want to crash. Values need to adjust slowly. I think number 2 and 3 kind of coincide, that I think it's bad news for the economy, but more importantly, I think 30%, the majority of you, said that they need the values to adjust slowly. I think that is the thing that will that's the thing that's going to keep us out of trouble, guys. It's the thing that keeps us out of trouble. So One last question here. We got Charlton question in your state, Massachusetts. Jen, do vacant house sales need to be brought up to local fire code? Smoke CO detectors, yes. CO detectors for fireplace, gas furnaces, oil furnaces. The smoke and fire requirements are every single property in Massachusetts. Doesn't matter if it's vacant or not. Certain local depending on the local ordinance, some towns have the bylaw that if you are renovating, and I went through this when I was representing banks for foreclosure properties. And a lot of these foreclosure properties were going to be gutted, like gutted, which means everything's going anyways. And when you're doing something like that, you're required to get a new smoke detector and certificate anyways. So there'll be, oftentimes what'll happen is the attorneys will have a legal statement, essentially, dismissing the bank, releasing them from liability, if something were to happen, they didn't get the smoke detectors and so forth. And the fire departments are okay with that. That's the way it is here in Plymouth. They'll do that. But those are only for small circumstances. But typical vacant properties, yeah, you gotta, you know what? Don't mess around with smoke and CO detectors, guys. Don't mess around with that, especially this time of year. Heat's coming on and all the things. Um, my good friend, one of my good friend Jackie will tell you a story about her smoke detectors and CO detectors and thank God she have them because she has them and they're all operational because she had an issue with her chimney and CO was backing up into her house, and if it wasn't for those detectors, um, likely she wouldn't be here today because CO carbon monoxide is a silent killer. So guys, check those out. Check those out, please, please, please. Guys, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me this evening. If you are traveling this week, please, please, please be safe. There is no short of crazies on the road, especially this time of year, and this week is going to be no exception. There's going to be a lot of people driving on the roads. Please be careful out there and enjoy time with if you're spending time with family. Enjoy that time. If you're just chillaxing at home, enjoy the peacefulness. Just to be thankful for what we have. And there's so much talk about what we don't have these days. I think it's, Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays because there's no expectation, gifts or any of that nonsense. You're just grateful for what you have, whether it be health, food, housing, whatever it is in your life that you're grateful for. Take stock of it because it's sometimes we forget how all the things that we have around us, abundance mindset. I'll be back here next week, guys, next Tuesday, 6 p.m. And as I always say, at 6 p.m. Eastern time, as I always say, if you are visiting with your relatives this holiday and you don't agree with them, politically or otherwise, before you judge, before you end up saying something you wish you can take back, seek to understand. You don't have to agree with them. You don't. But ask them why they feel the way they do. Have a conversation. Seek to understand before you judge. Having some empathy, having some understanding, trying to meet them where they're at. Sometimes, sometimes you might be surprised at what you learn. Food for thought. You guys have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble. See you guys next week. Ciao.